What's up, guys? Today we're going to check out the new Formovie Cinema Edge 4K Ultra Short Throw Projector. And thank you Formovie for sending me this projector so I can bring you guys this review. If you want to grab one, there will be some links down below in this video's description. Inside the box, we get the manual, a cleaning cloth, the power cord, and the remote control. This is a fairly compact projector measuring 3.58 inches in height, 17.9 inches wide by 12.1 inches deep, and it weighs 15.4 pounds. On the front is a pair of 15-watt speakers, so it should sound pretty good. On the top is the fixed lens with a throw ratio of 0.23 to 1. The power button is located on the top right upper corner. On the back is the AC inlet, 3 HDMI 2.1 inputs, one with eARC support, 2 USB ins, a 3.5mm audio output jack, optical output, and a LAN input. This is a 4K capable DLP projector using a blue phosphor laser with ALPD technology. It supports HDR10 and HLG. If you want Dolby Vision support, you will have to step up to their flagship higher-end model, the Formovie Theater. Neither projector supports 3D. It is rated at 1900 ISO lumens, which is a little brighter than the flagship theater model. It's got a contrast ratio rating of 3000 to 1 with 110% Rec 709 coverage. It runs off of the Google TV Android 11 platform, so you will get all the Android Smart TV features, and it is a Netflix certified projector right out of the box. I'm going to go ahead and get this thing hooked up and we'll take a look around the projector. Alright, so after you go ahead, get everything all set up, you're going to be taken to the home screen. Now, just browsing around through the UI, you can see that it is fairly snappy. However, the quicker you go and the longer lists that you're scrolling through, you will notice that it can be a little bit laggy here and there. It's not terrible, but just know that this is not the quickest ultra short throw that I've used. But now let's just go up to the settings and we'll just check out some of the settings here. I'm not going to go through all the settings here, so I'm only going to check out the settings that pertains to the projector itself. So the first section here is the projector settings. We're going to go straight into the keystone correction. Now, as you can see here, this is going to let you have 8 different points where you can finally tailor the image to your screen. So as you can see, I've got the image not exactly perfectly lined up with my screen. So what I'm going to do is select a point, and then I'm going to get the white box into the boundaries of my screen. So all you do is pick a specific spot, and then you're just going to drag it down until you get everything perfectly lined up. You can move the image up and down, and then you can also pull it in from left and right. So we're just going to do this until we get all of the bounding box inside the screen itself. Now keep in mind, this is digitally correcting the image. That is typically not something that you're going to want to do, because since this projector is capable of 4K resolution, by digitally manipulating the image, you are effectively cutting into that 4K resolution. So you're eliminating some of the usable pixels just to square up the image. So ideally, you'd want to get this as square as possible with your screen. Obviously, that's not always the case, just as this case here that I'm showing you. But if you do take the time and get everything squared up, you will be guaranteed you will be using the whole 4K resolution instead of something like maybe 3.8K is probably what I'm getting by doing this. So for the best possible image, try not to use digital keystoning. The next section that we're going to look at is focus. So right now I've got it perfectly focused, but if you move the D-pad left or right, you can see that right now I'm going out of focus. But if I move it back over to the left, then you're going to stop it till you can actually start reading the words. And as reference, I am projecting on a 150-inch screen by Screen Innovations. The next section here is projection type. Right now I have the projector sitting in front of the screen, so I've got it set up as front projection desktop. We've got rear projection desktop, so if this is mounted behind your screen, you want to project forward, that's what you would do. We've got front projection ceiling, so you can mount this on the ceiling. And then the last option is rear projection ceiling, which you would mount it on the ceiling behind the screen. But we're going to go back, switch it over to front projection desktop. The next section here is brightness mode. So the brightest mode for this projector is going to be office mode. Next option down is standard mode, which is a little bit dimmer. And then for night mode, this is going to cut brightness to about 35, maybe 40% to give it a dimmer picture. But I think most folks, especially using larger screens, you're probably going to want to keep it on office mode. This will give you the brightest output for the projector. The next section is body sensor. You can turn this on or off. This will turn off the laser on, well, it will dim the laser on the projector if you happen to brush in front of the projector's laser, so that way you don't accidentally blind yourself. And then heat dissipation mode, you can put it on standard mode, which will only ramp up the fan in the projector if your room is hot or if the projector gets a little bit warm. Or if you put it on auxiliary mode, this will kick up the fan into high mode, which makes the projector audibly a lot louder. And then the next section here, we've got picture. This will give you a few different picture presets. First option here is user mode, which will let you change brightness, contrast, saturation, hue, sharpness, advanced settings, and then reset to default. If we jump into advanced settings, we've got digital noise reduction. We got a few different options for that. We've got off, low, medium, strong, and auto. I would suggest you leave this on off. MPEG noise reduction, same options here for the best image possible. I would probably keep that on off. Adaptive luma control, we've got a few different settings here. We've got off, low, medium, and strong. This will change the brightness of the image on a scene-by-scene basis. But this could cause clipping in the image and also crushing in the black levels. So I would suggest you leave that off. However, you can season that to taste. If you like it with on or off, you would do the same thing here for the local contrast control, which again would enhance contrast on a scene-by-scene basis. And again, you can either start clipping highlights or start crushing detail in the dark areas. Again, something seasoned to taste. Maybe you'll like the image that you get from this sometimes, or maybe you won't. I would suggest you keep that off. For color space, we've got auto, and then we've got off on, then 709, RGB, 2020, and DCI. I would just suggest you leave that on auto. Let the projector do that itself. For flesh tone, we've got off, low, medium, and high. This will brighten up skin tones to give it a more natural feel. Sometimes it can be a little too light. Sometimes it might be a little too orange. So I would suggest you leave that on off. DI film mode, this is basically 3-2 pull down. I would just leave that on auto. Blue stretch will add a bit of blue to the image to make it a little bit easier on your eyes, but it's also going to make the image a lot cooler. So I would keep this on off just to be a little bit more accurate. And then for gamma, we've got dark, middle, and then bright. And then we've got game mode. If we're playing a video game, you're going to want to turn that on to shut off most of the video processing and give you a lot faster response time. PC mode, we do not have a PC hooked up to this. So decounter, we've got different settings for this, low, medium, and high. This will help with color banding. So if you're watching lower quality sources and you're noticing any kind of posterization or banding, you would use this to kind of dither the image. Right now, we're not watching anything of low quality, so I would just keep that on off. For MJC, I believe this stands for motion judder control. This will basically turn on the soap opera effect. So if you're noticing some jagged movements, or if you don't like the 24 frames per second look that a lot of films are shot in, you want to get that smoother look, you can change the settings here between low, middle, and high. For the most accurate representation of what you're watching, I would keep that on off, but that is, again, seasoned to taste. And then low blue light, this is basically the same thing as the blue light stretch mode. This will add a bit of blue to the image, or you can actually cut down on the blue in the image here, but I would leave that on off. And then for color tuner, this is essentially the color management system. So if you have the appropriate gear to calibrate this display, this projector, then you can change all of these settings and get everything dialed in perfectly. I do not have such gear, so I am not going to be doing that. And then the same option here for the 11-point white balance control. And then the last option here is reset everything to its default. And then the next section that we have here is sound. So you can turn on or off the speakers. Right now, we do not have this hooked up to an AVR or processor, so we're going to keep the speakers on. We've got speaker delay, we've got EARC, we've got auto and then off. DTS, DRC, dynamic range control, I would just keep this turned off. That way you can get the most dynamic range out of DTS audio sources. Dolby audio processing, you can turn this on or off, and you have a few different presets for this. We've got cinema, game, music, soft, sports, news, and then custom. So if we go down to custom, you can see here that we have the volume leveler that is now active. If we change it to something other than custom, the volume leveler is not able to be changed. And then dialogue enhancer, you can turn this low, medium, and high, or turn it off. This will help to boost up the vocals in a movie or show, so if you're having a hard time hearing dialogue, you might want to play with those settings. And then the last option is reset to default. Next section here is audio output. So we've got auto, bypass, or PCM. So if you want to hook this up to your AVR or processor, you want to get Dolby Atmos or DTS:X working, you're going to want to keep this on bypass, but to make it easier, you can just keep it on auto. And then we have digital output delay. And that is going to wrap it up for the projector settings. Now let's just go ahead, check out a couple of apps and see if they support 4K HDR and check out the quality. The first one we're going to jump into is the YouTube app. And if we jump into the settings here, you can see that this does indeed support 2160 HDR, so you will get 4K HDR on the YouTube app. And it is a nice, bright, vibrant image. Let's just jump on over to Disney Plus. And as you can see, under Avengers Endgame, this does support IMAX Enhanced HDR10. And again, as you can see in the upper left-hand corner, it does say HDR if the content is HDR compatible. And one more app that I use quite often is going to be the Apple TV app. So we're going to jump into Bad Monkey, and despite it saying Dolby Vision, this does not support Dolby Vision. And if we jump into episode 1, you can see in the upper left-hand corner, this does support HDR10. And once again, this throws out a nice, bright, vibrant image. So all of the apps that would support HDR does indeed support it inside the Formovie projector. Now, if you are watching content and you want to make some picture changes while you're watching the movie or show, tap on the settings button and then you can jump right on over to the picture settings. Right now, we are watching HDR10 material, so it's on HDR10 mode. We've got it on user mode, but let's just go down the presets and see how this affects the picture. Next option here is standard. We can see that this will change the overall brightness just a little bit and then bump up the sharpness, which is at a default at 10. You can, of course, change all of these if you want to, but these are just the preset settings. For vivid mode, you can see how the contrast is now bumped up and then the saturation is bumped up as well. Sport mode, this bumps down the saturation and contrast. Movie mode, we've got sharpness all the way down to 0, but also gives the image a slightly warmer look to it. And then for game mode, this one, the default settings for sharpness is at a 5. And then I also believe that this puts the brightness mode probably, I believe, on standard. But what I like to do is put it on user mode and then change all of these settings myself. So let's just check out what some of these settings do here. So right now, this is adaptive luma control. We've got it turned off, but if we go all the way to the opposite end, put it on strong, you can see how it affects the overall black levels and then the peak highlight levels. And then if we go ahead, go down to local contrast control, this almost looks very similar to the luma control. So right now we've got everything turned on off. I turned the adaptive luma control on off. But then if you go down and just select high, again, you can see the overall picture brightness gets a little bit brighter, but then the black levels also get a little bit darker. And then for gamma settings, right now we've got it on bright, but let's check out what middle looks like. So this will dim down the picture, the overall picture brightness a little bit, and then dark mode will bring it down a little bit darker as well. But I believe the most accurate setting should be on bright mode. Again, you're going to want to play with all of those settings just to see how you like it the best. Now, as far as picture quality, keep in mind that I am projecting this on a 150-inch screen with a gain of 1.1. So this is a white screen, all white screen with only a 1.1 gain. I think a lot of folks will probably either use this on a wall or probably use this on an ALR screen with a much higher gain just to get a little bit more brightness with the lights turned on. So in my home theater, I have a totally light controlled room, and with the lights off at 150 inches, this is not the brightest projector that I've had in here. Now, I do think if I went down to about 100 inches, maybe 120 inches, this would be a lot brighter. But at 150 inches, this is kind of pushing the capabilities of how bright this projector can get. So keep that in mind. I would probably stick to about 120 or below. Say 100 inches is probably the sweet spot. That being said, this does throw out some really nice vivid colors, as you can see. I did find this to look best with all the features turned off, such as the lumen control and the contrast enhancer, the max vivid control. With all those features turned off, I found that it gave me the most natural color without clipping highlights, without crushing any of the shadow details. Because turning those settings on, I found that the black levels just became a bit too dark, and I started losing a lot of that shadow detail. So keeping that stuff turned off is definitely the best way to go. And as far as black levels are concerned, this is right up there with all the other USTs that I've used in the past. From BenQ, from XJimmy, from Xiaomi. I mean, these all have very similar black levels. They're not the best. They're not going to keep up with Sony or JVC projector, which costs 8 to 10 times as much. So the black levels with these types of projectors, they tend to lean more on the really dark gray side. So you're not going to get perfect black with these projectors. If you do want to enhance the black levels, again, you can use the contrast enhancer or the lumen control, but you know, the granular control is not that good where it's still going to maintain all that good shadow detail. So you kind of have to keep cost in perspective. For the cost of the projector, the black levels are right in line with the other USTs that I've used, which is not a bad thing. So keeping price in mind, you're getting really good performance for what this projector has to offer. You will have to spend a lot more money to get better black levels and better brightness. And as far as sharpness and detail is concerned, this throws out an extremely sharp picture, just in line with all the other UST projectors I've ever seen. So if you are watching 4K material, this throws out an extremely sharp picture. Now, if you are using this for video games, this does have a pretty snappy response. There is a little bit of lag between you moving the joystick and what's going on screen, but you know, you will get acclimated to it pretty quickly. So this is not for the super high competitive gamer. So if you are a hardcore dedicated gamer, then you might want to just stick to your gaming display.
That's why we're going to kill him. Mufasa has always shown too much restraint when it comes to hunting. When I am, the mighty will be free to take whatever they want, because a hyena is never full.
Mufasa's far too powerful to challenge.
Mufasa is yesterday's message. A clapped-out, distracted regime, whose failings undoubtedly presage the need for a different dream. Yes, leonine times are a-changing.
It might be kind of hard to tell in the video, but for me personally, I did find that the cinema sound mode sounded the best. It had the most fuller sound, the most low-end response, so more bass with a nice quality high-frequency detail. Again, this is one of those things you're going to have to find out, depending on the content that you're watching, what sounds best to you. But this does throw out plenty of volume to fill up a nice size room, maybe a small to mid-size room. Anything really big, you're probably going to want to have to hook this up to a surround sound receiver or processor just to get the full surround sound effect. But as is, this will fill a nice size room. At the time of this video, the Formovie Cinema Edge is selling for $2,200. As mentioned earlier, this is right there with other ultra short throw projectors in the same price range. If you pair it with the appropriate screen size, this can give you a very bright image. And also, for being a DLP, I did not notice any rainbow effect. The black levels are exactly what I expected for a $2,000 projector, and again will compete favorably with other ultra short throws in the same price category. If you want to step up to better performance, you will have to spend substantially more. One real negative is that this projector does not support 3D movie playback, so that could be a real deal breaker for some of you. But overall, this is a very nicely packaged projector with all the major streaming apps on board with really good sound. If you're itching for a big cinematic movie night in an all-in-one package, the Formovie Cinema Edge is more than capable to scratch that itch. Now, if you do want to pick up this projector, I will leave some links for it down below in this video's description. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again in the next video.